The Silence Protocol, Prologue, the fleet that stopped breathing. There were 17 million Varkesh in the invasion fleet when Fleet Sovereign Krax Var ordered the death of Earth. 91 of them remained conscious long enough to understand why the order had failed. The armada filled half the sky. From the observation blister beneath the Varkesh flagship's command deck, Earth looked small enough to hold between two claws. A blue-white sphere veiled in cloud, turning with insulting serenity beneath the targeting lattice. Fires burned along its night side, where pieces of the orbital defense grid had fallen through the atmosphere. The moon showed 3 fresh craters. Human ships drifted in broken formations beyond it, venting air and coolant in silver ribbons. Krax Var stood before the tactical display with his hands clasped behind his back. He was taller than every officer around him, his hide dark with age, his ceremonial command spines plated in black iron. He had conquered 5 systems and ended 47 rebellions. He had learned patience on battlefields where impatient commanders became meat. Earth had taught him patience of another kind. For 16 days, its defenders had turned every empty orbit into an ambush. Cargo tugs became kinetic lances. Mining mirrors became blinding arrays. Ships that should have fled continued fighting after their command decks were gone. One human destroyer, split nearly in half, had used its own escaping atmosphere to alter course and ram a Varkesh carrier. It had changed nothing. The human fleet was shattered. Mars had surrendered its military stations. The defense platforms at Luna were silent. Beneath Krax Var's feet, the Dominion's planet cracker drew power from 12 captive suns stored in folded chambers. "Firing solution is stable," said Weapons Master Orak. "Continental pattern loaded. First strike will remove their political centers. Second will fracture the mantle." "Hold," Krax Var said. His daughter turned from the lower command tier. Air Commander Sareth Var wore no ceremonial armor, only the grey interface mesh of a fleet officer. A narrow scar crossed one eye, earned during the battle for Neptune. She had advised him not to enter the inner system. She had not advised retreat. No Varkesh air would do that. She had only said that the humans were behaving like a species that expected something other than victory or defeat. "The hour has expired," she said. "Then let them hear the consequence." Krax Var opened a fleet-wide channel. His image went to every surviving human station, every shelter beneath Earth's crust, and the emergency chamber of the Concorde 3,000 light-years away. "People of the Terran Union," he said, "your claim to the Sol system is ended. You were offered honorable submission. You answered with sabotage and unlawful resistance. Your military is gone. Your allies have abandoned you. Transfer the Helios Rift and dissolve your government, or your homeworld will be rendered incapable of supporting life." There was no reply for 9 seconds. Then every display on the command deck went white. One human appeared against a plain blue background. Ambassador Daniel Mercer looked old even by human standards. His silver hair was untidy. A bruise colored one side of his face, and the collar of his formal black coat had been repaired with visible thread. He sat at the human desk in the Concorde chamber, surrounded by empty seats. Krax Var had watched Mercer plead, bargain, object, request delays, cite statutes, and appeal to the conscience of civilizations that had misplaced it centuries ago. The human had been unfailingly polite. He was polite now. "Fleet Sovereign," Mercer said, "this is the 3rd and final notice. Withdraw every Dominion vessel beyond the Sol exclusion boundary." Soft laughter moved across the command deck. Krax Var did not join it. Or what? Mercer's gaze shifted, not toward Krax Var, but toward someone outside the image. For the first time, Sareth thought the human looked afraid. Not afraid of the fleet, afraid of what would happen if it stayed. "No more extensions," a voice said beside Mercer. He closed his eyes for half a heartbeat. When he opened them, the fear had been placed somewhere deeper. "Or," he said, "we will withdraw our support." Orak showed his teeth. "Support? Their last carrier is burning." "Begin the firing sequence," Krax Var said. Orak reached for the authorization field. His arm stopped halfway. The weapons master blinked at it. His claws trembled. Then his knees folded and he struck the deck hard enough to break one of his command spines. A communications officer staggered from her station. "Medical alert," she said. "Decks 12 through." Her voice softened into a sigh. She sat down as if overcome by sudden weariness and did not rise. Across the tactical display, green symbols turned amber, then black. One dreadnought lost thrust, then 6, then 50. Reports came from every level at once. Pilots could not move their hands. War-clade implants were disconnecting. Artificial hearts had entered protective suspension. Weapons refused biological authentication. Command interfaces displayed strings of human medical code. Kraxvar seized the rail as numbness climbed his legs. What weapon struck us? Mercer was still on every screen. No weapon entered your ships, the human said. Kraxvar watched Aurak struggle to breathe. He saw his officers collapsing in ordered rows, as if some invisible tide passed through the command deck. Beyond the blister, the greatest fleet in Varkesh history drifted in perfect silence above the world it had come to murder. What have you done? Mercer's expression held no triumph. We revoked our support. Kraxvar fell, and 73 years of human silence ended with him. Chapter 1. The Harmless Species. 73 years earlier, the Concord of Civilized Worlds spent 11 days deciding whether humanity was too violent to be civilized. The debate took place beneath the artificial sky of Orison, a station older than human agriculture. Its grand assembly was an amphitheater of dark stone suspended around a miniature star. Delegations occupied terraces shaped for bodies with wings, shells, tendrils, fins, or no permanent anatomy at all. The humans had been given 6 chairs. They used only 5. Daniel Mercer, then the youngest member of Earth's delegation, sat behind Ambassador Ada Okafor and tried not to stare at the miniature sun. Dr. Marcus Val sat beside him, turning a plain metal ring around one finger. The empty chair between them belonged to a diplomat who had suffered an allergic reaction to the ceremonial atmosphere and was being treated by human doctors 2 decks below. It had not improved the delegation's image. First Speaker Seelith of the Ilari Continuum addressed the assembly from a column of silver light. She was nearly 2 centuries old, tall and fine-boned, with translucent skin through which pale currents moved like moonlight beneath ice. The record is not disputed, she said. Before achieving planetary government, humans deployed chemical agents, engineered pathogens, nuclear weapons, autonomous combat systems, and methods of industrial extermination against members of their own species. Images appeared above the chamber. Trenches, firestorms, camps, mushroom clouds, cities viewed through targeting cameras. Mercer had seen them in school. Here, enlarged above the representatives of 400 civilizations, they felt less like history than evidence at a trial. A Varkesh crown-clad observer rose from the security directorate. They achieved orbital flight while divided into armed nation-states. They placed nuclear devices in the hands of rival ideological blocs and called the condition peace. We called it mutually assured destruction, Okafor said. The Varkesh showed his teeth. A distinction without improvement. There was scattered amusement. The phrase war apes had appeared in the chamber's unofficial translation feed on the first day. By the 4th, several delegates were using it openly. Seelith looked toward the human terrace. Does Earth contest the facts? Okafor rose. No. The answer disturbed the chamber more than denial might have. We contest the conclusion, she continued. You see that history and ask whether we are capable of terrible violence. We know the answer. Our dead answered it for us. The relevant question is whether a civilization that remembers what it is capable of may be safer than one that has forgotten. The Varkesh observer leaned forward. You offer shame as a qualification? I offer self-knowledge. Marcus Vale stopped turning his ring. The Concord admitted humanity 3 days later by a margin of 9 votes. The conditions were exhaustive. Earth accepted limits on fleet tonnage, mandatory weapons inspections, surveillance of its colonies, restricted access to strategic transit relays, and a prohibition against self-replicating autonomous machines. Human vessels could not carry weapons above a specified yield. Human laboratories would submit to random review. The Sol system would remain open to Concord observers. Ambassador Okafor accepted every restriction. The Elder Powers interpreted this as gratitude. After the vote, Mercer found Marcus alone in a viewing gallery, watching Orison's docking arms turn against the stars. We're in, Mercer said. Marcus nodded. You don't sound happy. I am relieved. That's the scientist's version of happiness. Marcus almost smiled. At 41, he already looked exhausted. He had the narrow face and restless hands his daughter would inherit, Though Elena was still a cadet then, and no one in the Concorde knew her name. Beyond the window, an Illyri inspection craft attached itself to the human courier. "They think the restrictions are on us," Marcus said. Mercer studied him. "Who are they on?" "History, if we're careful. And if we aren't," Marcus resumed, turning the ring, "everyone." In the following decades, the galaxy learned to stop worrying about humanity. Humans did not build dreadnoughts. They built things dreadnought crews wanted to own. Their first great commercial success was a palm-sized sensory translator called a lark. It did not merely exchange words. It learned context, posture, color change, pheromonal emphasis, electrical signaling, and culturally specific silence. For the first time, an Orun could understand a sail joke before it had to be explained. The device sold 11 billion units. Then came adaptive fabrics that changed temperature and texture across species. Household fabricators that asked what the user wanted instead of requiring 6 years of engineering study. Environmental regulators that could balance a room shared by oxygen breathers, methane breathers, and beings who found both atmospheres corrosive. Human stories spread faster than human machinery. The Illyri, who had preserved dramatic traditions for 80,000 years, became obsessed with short human murder mysteries. Orun freight crews delayed departures to finish serialized romances. A Varkesh war-clad academy banned a human strategy game after cadets began questioning whether victory conditions chosen by superior officers were always rational. The ban tripled its popularity. Human medicine went everywhere. Earth had spent centuries learning how to keep fragile bodies alive after collisions. Bullets, burns, cancers, toxins, bad genes, failed organs, and their owners' baffling decisions. The Concorde's elder species could regenerate limbs and print replacement bodies, but their systems were specialized, expensive, and slow to adapt. Human emergency medicine was inelegant and immediate. Continuity clinics opened on station concourses and colony worlds. Their microscopic repair systems learned alien tissue. They stopped immune storms, rebuilt damaged nerves, removed industrial toxins, and maintained translation interfaces at the cellular boundary. Every treatment was licensed. Every safety review was passed. Every microscopic machine complied with the Concorde's prohibition against autonomous replication because, technically, none could reproduce alone. Each borrowed molecular tools already present in its environment. Each was helpless without the network around it. The distinction lived in 17,000 pages of human patent law. The galaxy did not read them. Tovan Rel first encountered human medicine at the age of 9. He was Narith, hatched in a refugee district on an Orun cargo moon. His species had once built cities in the warm shallows of Nara, where towers rose from the sea like reeds of colored glass. The Varkesh had taken the planet before Tovan's parents were born. The Concorde had condemned the invasion, imposed sanctions, suspended them, and eventually recognized the irreversible administrative reality. Tovan knew Nara only from archived light. When a loading machine crushed his thorax, an Orun physician gave him a 2% chance of survival. A human medic arrived wearing mismatched boots, swore at the diagnostic equipment, and filled Tovan's circulation with experimental repair motes. The motes rebuilt both hearts. For the rest of his life, when Tovan became tired or frightened, faint blue lines appeared beneath the scales of his chest. The human medic called it harmless bioluminescent leakage. Tovan called it being alive. By the time he became an archival systems technician at Orison, human devices were no longer foreign products. They were part of galactic life. Human software routed Orun freight. Human environmental systems cooled Illyri memory vaults. Human neural lace allowed sail diplomats to dampen the sensory pain of crowded assemblies. Earth gained influence but little territory. It mediated border disputes. It offered aid after disasters. It kept asking the Concorde to strengthen protected world statutes, restrict planet-killing weapons, and guarantee collective defense for younger civilizations. The Security Directorate declined with impeccable courtesy. Civilization advances through consensus, Calith once told Mercer after a failed vote. He had served on Orison for 38 years by then. His hair was turning grey. "Does it?" he asked. Sealith heard no accusation. Not yet. In those same years, Marcus Vale became director of the Continuity Mesh. Officially, The mesh was a medical authentication standard distributed across human-manufactured technology. Unofficially, it was Earth's answer to extinction. When humanity had first detected evidence of the elder civilizations, its military analysts had reached a conclusion so unanimous that governments attempted to classify the mathematics. Earth could not win. It could build fleets for 1,000 years and remain behind. A single ancient power could sterilize Sol from beyond the range of human senses. No wall could be high enough. No conventional deterrent could be built before someone decided humanity's world was useful. So a coalition of soldiers, doctors, diplomats, ethicists, engineers, and survivors designed the Quiet Defense Doctrine. Humanity would not challenge the galaxy's fleets. It would become something those fleets could not safely destroy. The continuity mesh healed because healing opened doors weapons never could. It translated because translation required access to thought. It maintained machines because maintenance revealed every dependency. It did genuine good on a scale its creators had barely imagined. And beneath every benevolent function was an emergency instruction that could not be licensed, altered, or erased. The Silence Protocol. Marcus spent 40 years hoping no one would ever speak its name. Chapter 2. The Predator's Claim. The Varkesh did not discover the Helios Rift by accident. They found it by stealing the survey data of a dead human physicist. Dr. Annika Bose had spent 26 years studying small timing discrepancies in probes passing behind the sun. She believed Sol's particular arrangement of mass and magnetic turbulence produced a fold beneath ordinary gravitational geometry. In her private notes, she compared it to a knot pulled so tight that distant parts of the universe touched inside it. Her final experiment sent a grain of manufactured diamond from Mercury to an empty system 12,000 light-years away. It arrived before the activation signal left Sol. Bose died of a stroke 7 hours later. Her laboratory sealed the work pending review. A forge-clad subcontractor copied the data while replacing a human cooling unit. Within a month, the equations were in the hands of fleet sovereign Krax Var. He understood their meaning immediately. The Concorde's great powers controlled the galaxy through transit corridors. Relays made interstellar commerce possible, but their positions were known and their routes predictable. Whoever controlled them controlled trade, migration, and war. The Helios Rift needed no relay. If the humans learned to enlarge it, fleets could cross the galaxy without warning, or trade could bypass every Orun toll. Or smaller worlds could escape the strategic geography that kept them dependent on ancient powers. To Krax Var, all three possibilities were intolerable. The Dominion's first demand arrived under the title Joint Petition for the Stabilization of a Potential Transit Hazard. It proposed a temporary Varkesh security presence in Sol, shared control of all human solar research, and permanent Dominion inspection rights. Ambassador Mercer responded in 34 words. The Helios Rift lies within the sovereign territory of the Terran Union. Earth welcomes scientific cooperation conducted under existing Concorde law. Earth will not transfer jurisdiction over its home system. The second demand was less polite. The third included a fleet schedule. Krax Var came to Orison in person for the emergency session. Age had thickened his shoulders and darkened his hide. He wore the white armor of a crown-appointed fleet sovereign, though weapons were forbidden in the chamber. The humans possess an unregulated strategic gate, he said. Their own history proves the danger. They created atomic weapons before they created global law. Shall we wait for them to place warships at every capital? No stable transit aperture exists, Mercer said. The experiment moved less than 2 grams. So you admit it? We submitted the result to the Concorde Science Secretariat 6 weeks ago. After concealing the research for 26 years, we did not conceal it. We failed to invite your intelligence service into Dr. Bose's private notes. Several younger delegates produced involuntary signs of amusement. Krax Var did not look at them. The Dominion proposes security administration, not annexation. Administered by whom? A directorate coalition. Under whose command? Mine. Mercer nodded as if a useful detail had finally been cleared. Then no. First Speaker Seelith requested a private recess. She met Mercer in an Illyri garden where crystalline trees translated station vibration into soft music. To Calith, humans always seemed hurried by mortality. Mercer had grown old during what felt to her like a long political season. She had known his children's names, then his grandchildren's. Affection had grown beside condescension so gradually that she mistook the mixture for friendship. "Daniel," she said, "you must give them something. Scientific access. Something that resembles control. Control of our sun? Oversight of the rift. Would the Continuum surrender oversight of Elir? Our situations are not comparable." "That is the only answer anyone gives when I ask." Salith's skin currents slowed. "You cannot fight the Dominion." "I know. Then why provoke them? Saying no is not provocation. To a Varkesh, refusal without strength is an invitation to establish rank. And giving them soul would teach them what?" Salith looked through the glass leaves toward the miniature sun below. "That humanity is mature enough to preserve life." "Whose life? For how long?" She turned back. Mercer's face was calm. His pulse, visible at the throat, was not. "Help me understand," she said. "All right. If we surrender the rift, they will place ships in Sol. They will demand our research and call it inspection. They will take our engineers as guarantors. They will identify every institution that could resist occupation, and when they are ready, they will manufacture a crisis that requires permanent administration. The Concord would never recognize." "You recognized Nara." The garden became very quiet. "That was before your species joined us," Calith said, "but not before yours did." The Varkesh escalated with the practiced care of predators circling a wounded animal. Dominion banks froze human assets. Cargo insurers raised premiums on ships entering Sol. Separatist movements on 2 human colonies received sudden funding and sophisticated weapons. Varkesh patrols began appearing near Terran research stations. Anonymous reports accused Earth of developing prohibited autonomous war machines beneath the sun. The Concord urged mutual restraint. Then, a Varkesh cruiser entered the Kuiper research zone and destroyed Station Far Horizon. The station housed 186 scientists and 11 children. It transmitted for 7 seconds after the first strike. Admiral Elena Val watched those seconds 34 times. Far Horizon's external feed showed the Varkesh cruiser emerging against the black. A targeting beam painted the station. Someone behind the camera said very softly, "Oh." Then white light. The Dominion claimed its cruiser had responded to an attack. Humanity released the station's complete sensor archive, the cruiser's intercepted command traffic, and visual records from 3 civilian probes. The evidence was absolute. The Grand Assembly debated for 12 days. On the 13th, it declined to impose sanctions. That evening, Elena stood alone in the flag briefing room aboard the T2S Hastings. 49 years old, compact, dark-haired, she carried stillness the way other officers carried weapons. She wore no decorations except a narrow black strip for the crew of Far Horizon. Her father appeared as a secure projection. They had not spoken in 8 months. "The Threshold Council convenes in 6 hours, Marcus said. "I know. I wanted you to hear from me that authentication will begin. Not activation. No, you always correct that first, because the distinction matters. To the people on Far Horizon," Marcus flinched. Elena regretted the question and did not take it back. "Authentication tells us whether the mesh is intact," he said. "Nothing more. Across the Dominion, across the Concord. How many biological hosts?" He looked away. "Dad, we estimate 62% of the Concord's registered population carries some mesh-derived component." Elena sat down. 62%. Most are medical residues, benign repair structures. Some are generations removed from human manufacture. "Do they know?" "They consented to the treatments." "That is not what I asked." "No." Elena stared through him at the tactical wall, where the outer Sol boundary glowed as a thin blue sphere. "You built a trigger inside people who trusted our doctors. We built a safeguard inside our technology. Once it's in a body, that distinction belongs to lawyers." His voice hardened. "And what distinction would you prefer? The one between a living Earth and an honorable cloud of ash?" For a moment they were father and daughter in her childhood kitchen, fighting because fear had made them cruel. Marcus lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. "So am I. Elena, authentication may reveal the system has degraded, or that foreign modifications broke root authority. We have never tested it at scale. And if it works," he turned the metal ring on his hand, her mother's ring, "then we continue hoping we never use it." At midnight, Earth issued its first formal warning. Ambassador Mercer stood before the Grand Assembly and spoke without notes. Any Varkesh military vessel crossing the marked Sol boundary will be treated as participating in an extermination campaign. The Terran Union requests immediate monitors, mediation, and defensive assistance under the Protected Worlds Compact. The Varkesh delegation called the language hysterical. The Orun markets dipped for 9 minutes, then recovered. Across hundreds of worlds, microscopic systems woke just enough to ask a single question. Are you still there? From human relays hidden in clinics, toys, ships, translators, fabrics, atmosphere processors, and living tissue came the answer. Yes. Then, for the first time in 73 years, Earth counted the galaxy. Chapter 3, The First Warning. Tovan Rel noticed the counting. It appeared in the Orison archives as a rounding error. He was reviewing access logs from the Far Horizon inquiry when 41 million dormant device certificates renewed within the same tenth of a second. They belonged to unrelated systems: medical implants, environmental controls, children's learning shells, kitchen fabricators, navigation aids. Most had no reason to contact Earth. Some had been manufactured by Orun companies under licenses so old that the human names had vanished from the packaging. All of them exchanged a packet too small to contain useful data. All of them used a channel that did not officially exist. Tovan isolated one certificate and traced its hardware lineage. The trail ran from an Orun pressure monitor to a human atmospheric stabilizer, from the stabilizer to a continuity clinic, and from the clinic to a set of molecular maintenance standards registered during humanity's first decade in the Concord. He requested authorization to inspect the packet. The archive refused. That had never happened to him. Orison preserved the Concord's memory, and its technicians could inspect almost anything. Tovan elevated his credentials. The refusal changed languages. Protected continuity function. Human root authority required. Blue lines brightened beneath the scales of his chest. He disconnected the terminal, said his supervisor. You look unwell, said his super-audled eyes rarely focused on the same subject. Old medical problem. Will it affect your shift? No. Then it is not an archival concern. Tovan waited until the supervisor departed, copied the access anomaly onto an isolated crystal, and placed it inside the hollow memorial bead he wore for Nara. On Earth, the Threshold Council met beneath Geneva in a room built before humanity possessed faster-than-light travel. There were no networked displays, no translation systems, no human-made conveniences clever enough to be compromised. Paper folders lay before 27 people representing the Terran Union's civil government, military commands, courts, colonies, and medical authorities. Marcus Vale occupied the only chair without a vote. At the center of the table sat 3 mechanical keys. The Quiet Defense Doctrine did not entrust extinction-level power to a president, general, scientist, or machine. Activation required independent findings by civilian and military courts, confirmation that Earth faced an imminent species-level attack, 3 formal warnings, and physical authorization from officers chosen by institutions designed to distrust one another. The system was deliberately slow. Marcus had argued for that. Now he listened, as Far Horizon's final 7 seconds played in the sealed room. The Chief Justice opened the first paper folder. The court finds credible evidence that the Varkesh Dominion has initiated armed territorial coercion and has falsified its account of the Far Horizon incident. One key turned. Nothing happened. That was the point. Humanity had learned that no single step toward catastrophe should be dramatic enough to feel satisfying. Afterward, Marcus traveled to Luna to inspect the primary continuity control plane. The facility lay under a crater, the official maps described as a decommissioned water reservoir. Its central chamber contained no supercomputer, only a sphere of black material surrounded by analog consoles. The real system was everywhere else. The sphere was merely where Earth asked it questions. Marcus placed both hands on the interface. Mesh census, he said. Light unfolded around him. The galaxy appeared not as stars but as relationships. Golden strands connected worlds, ships, habitats, and biological populations. Dense webs surrounded Orun trade stations. Fine rivers moved along transit corridors. The Illyri continuum shimmered like a constellation underwater. Even the Varkesh Dominion glowed, especially the Dominion. The Varkesh had publicly rejected human medical dependence. Privately, Crown and Warclades demanded the finest life extension treatments in the galaxy. Their hereditary enhancements were unstable, their combat implants toxic without constant regulation. Human-derived maintenance code had entered their clinics 46 years earlier through a licensed Orun subsidiary. Krax Var himself had carried continuity structures since a battlefield inoculation in his youth. Marcus searched for Elena. The system found her aboard the Hastings before he finished speaking. It displayed her pulse, immune status, old bone repairs, and the tiny neural bridge implanted after a training accident at 19. He recoiled from the interface. Every authorized function had once sounded reasonable. Emergency location, medical triage, identity confirmation after mass casualty events. Together, they formed a kind of intimacy no government should possess. He remembered Elena at 6, asleep on his chest, while rain tapped the windows. He remembered leaving her birthday dinner to answer a continuity alert. He remembered explaining that his work would keep her safe. Years later, after her mother died, Elena had asked whether safety was simply the word he used for everything he loved more than his family. The chamber door opened. Dr. Priya Okonkwo, chief ethicist of the Mesh, entered carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. "You searched for her again," she said. "The audit records that? I know your face." He accepted the coffee. 62% was low. How low? 71.4. Okonkwo closed her eyes. "Derived systems crossed into inheritance," Marcus said. "Not the machines themselves. Molecular templates, symbiotic repair pathways. In 3 species, the safety architecture now passes from parent to child. Can we remove it? Not quickly, not without casualties. Then we have failed the consent standard. We passed every standard that existed. That is not the same sentence." He gave a humorless laugh. "Elena said almost exactly that. She is usually right when she makes you angry." Marcus looked into the network. The protocol was supposed to revoke access to our systems. What does that mean when our systems have become part of them? It means we stop pretending this is only a technical question. Beyond Luna, human ships began taking defensive positions. Admiral Vale had been given 183 combat vessels to defend a solar system 8 light hours wide. The Varkesh staging force contained more than 9,000. At the first briefing, a young navigation officer asked which assets would be held in strategic reserve. "None," Elena said. The room went still. She displayed Sol from the heliopause to Earth. Thousands of faint markers appeared, mines buried in cometary ice, mirrors orbiting dark, civilian tugs fitted with military drives, sensor ghosts waiting to become false fleets. "We do not possess a reserve," she continued. "We possess time. Every asset will be spent purchasing it." "Time for reinforcement?" the officer asked. "Time for the political process." Everyone in the room knew there were no reinforcements. Only 12 people aboard the Hastings knew what process she meant. Elena divided the fleet into cells small enough to operate without centralized command. She issued retreat conditions that looked like madness. Abandon Jupiter if the Callisto habitats were evacuated, defend empty Neptune orbitals past the point of usefulness, preserve communication buoys, even at the cost of warships. The fleet was not deployed to win. It was deployed to make the shape of the war undeniable. The Varkesh would cross a marked border. They would attack monitored stations. They would reject visible escape routes and continue inward. Every aggressive choice would be recorded, authenticated, and shown to the galaxy. Thousands of human sailors might die to establish that humanity had not activated its hidden defense out of ambition. Elena signed every order herself. Then, she went to the observation deck and was sick into a waste pouch. The Sale ambassador found Mercer outside the Grand Assembly on the night of the first warning. Her name was Avarin. She wore a breathing veil embroidered with sensors that protected her from the emotional density of other species. To a Sale, feeling was not private. Fear sharpened the air, anger had pressure, grief accumulated in rooms. Humans were exhausting because they felt several incompatible things at once. Mercer was worse than most. "You believe they will invade," Avarin said. "Yes." "You are frightened." "Yes, but not of losing." He glanced at her. "When your warning was transmitted," she said, "I felt grief from you, guilt, anticipation, the pattern one feels near a surgeon before an amputation." Sale perception is remarkable. That was not an answer. It was admiration. Averin moved closer. What happens after the third notice? Mercer's composure tightened. She tasted the change in the air. Help us prevent there being one, he said. How? Vote for a defensive deployment. Ask the Illyri to place ships at the border. Ask the Orun to freeze Dominion credit. Make Krax Var believe the cost is not ours alone. And if the Concord refuses, Mercer looked through the chamber doors at the miniature star, then history will record that we asked. Chapter 4. The Galaxy Chooses Stability. The Concord did not refuse Earth all at once. It abandoned humanity by committee. The Orun Mercantile Compact suspended high-risk shipments into Sol, including medical precursors and reactor parts already purchased by Earth. Its trade minister apologized to Mercer and explained that contracts could not survive a regional war. Neither can customers, Mercer said. The minister's 6 hands made a gesture of commercial sorrow, which is why your government must settle. The sale offered to receive human refugees, provided the Dominion approved the evacuation corridors. 3 younger civilizations pledged ships, then withdrew the offers after Varkesh patrols appeared near their colonies. The Illyri Continuum proposed a compromise. The Helios Rift would remain nominally Terran, while a security directorate mission assumed temporary oversight. The mission would be commanded by Krax Var because the Dominion had already mobilized the necessary assets. You have put occupation in a blue folder, Mercer told Sealith. I have put survival in it. The security directorate approved the proposal unanimously. Earth rejected it. That was when the Dominion announced its stabilization fleet. Ships gathered at the Sol transit corridor until they became a second night sky. Varkesh state channels showed troop ceremonies, forge-clad assembly lines, and enormous carriers moving beneath triumphal banners. The stated mission was to secure a dangerous technology and bring the irresponsible human government into compliance with galactic law. No law authorized it. The Concord scheduled another debate. On Orison, Tovan Rel followed the hidden network. The tiny authentication signals formed a pattern through archive systems no human company had touched in decades. He found them inside Sale medical regulators, Orun transaction seals, and the environmental controls surrounding the Grand Assembly itself. He also found one inside his chest. At a continuity clinic, a human physician scanned him and frowned at the results. Your repair structures are old, she said. Can they communicate? In a limited way, they coordinate cardiac function. With Earth? The physician stopped smiling. I need you to be exact, Tovan said. They contain authentication routines. With Earth? In an emergency, certified nodes can. With Earth? She set down the scanner. Yes. Can Earth control them? No one controls your body. It was a careful answer, which told Tovan more than an honest one. He returned to the archive and used his access to compare continuity patent revisions across 70 years. The early designs were transparent. Later versions buried core instructions beneath medical safeguards. Alien manufacturers had modified nearly every component, but a small block of human logic remained unchanged. It did not appear in the schematics. It appeared in what the schematics refused to display. Tavan assembled the fragments on an isolated system. When the pattern resolved, it formed a human phrase translated into no official language. Quiet Defense Authority. He sent his findings to First Speaker Sealith. She summoned him to a private chamber within the hour. Who else has seen this? She asked. The human doctor who lied to me. Did she see your archive analysis? No. Then she did not lie about that. Kelith studied the fragments. Her skin currents moved rapidly, a sign Tovan had learned meant distress. You knew, he said. I knew humanity had distributed intelligence capabilities. Every major power does. Inside my hearts. Not this. Tovan leaned forward. First Speaker, when my world was invaded, did the Continuum know the Varkesh intended permanent annexation? Sealith's gaze cooled. That is not relevant. It is the only thing relevant to me. The Continuum assessed that military intervention would expand the conflict. You assessed correctly. There was no conflict after we stopped owning anything. She turned from him. Below the chamber's transparent floor, delegates entered the Grand Assembly for the decisive vote on Earth's request. They will refuse, Tovan said. The vote has not occurred. Neither had ours. The emergency session lasted 4 hours. Kraxvar addressed the assembly by projection from his flagship. Behind him stood ranks of war-clad officers. "The Dominion has no quarrel with the human population," he said. "Our dispute is with a government concealing a strategic threat. Once safe administration is established, compliant human institutions will retain local authority." Mercer listened from the human terrace. "You promised the Nareth the same thing," he said. Kraxvar's eyes narrowed. "The Nareth resisted." "So will we." Murmurs rolled through the chamber. Seelith rose. "Ambassador Mercer, is that an official declaration?" "It is a statement of physics." "Physics? An occupied people resist." The Orun trade minister clicked his mouthparts impatiently. "Earth cannot prevail. Resistance will cause deaths without changing the outcome. Then help us change it. The compact will not sacrifice commercial peace to preserve a human weapons project." Mercer looked around the terraces. "We have offered every government here full scientific participation in the rift once it is stable. We have asked for monitors at every laboratory. The Dominion has presented no evidence of a weapon. It has killed civilians, assembled an invasion fleet, and demanded our sovereign territory." He let the translation systems finish. "If the Varkesh can do this to Earth while you watch, what law protects any of you?" No one answered. Tovan left the technician gallery and walked onto the assembly floor. Archive personnel were not permitted to address sessions. Security fields rose around him. He placed his memorial bead on the floor and raised both empty hands. "My name is Tovan Rel," he said. "Archive designation 7-1, Nareth." The word Nareth moved through the chamber like an old discomfort. "Remove him," said the presiding officer. Mercer stood. "Earth yields its remaining time to the technician. Under assembly rules, the officer could not refuse." Tovan looked toward the projected face of Kraxvar. "My grandparents were told to accept temporary administration," he said. "They were told the Concord would monitor the Varkesh. They were told resistance would waste lives and that cooperation would preserve Nareth institutions." Kraxvar watched without expression. "Our institutions were dissolved. Our language was banned in schools. Our children were assigned to bound labor. The Concord investigated for 21 years. Then it changed the maps." Tovan turned to the Ileri terrace. "You call surrender peace because the dying happens after your meeting ends." Kalith lowered her eyes. "You ask humans to resist later," Tovan continued. "Preserve life now. Trust oversight. My people did. Later never came." The chamber remained still. For one impossible moment, Mercer thought it might be enough. Then the votes appeared above the artificial star. Earth's request for a collective defensive deployment failed by 37 votes. The Illyri abstained. The Orun voted no. The Sale voted no, accompanied by a formal plea for humanity to accept temporary occupation. The Old Order chose stability. As delegates departed, Mercer found Tovan seated alone beside the memorial bead. "That was brave," Mercer said. "It was ineffective." "Those are not opposites." Tovan's blue cardiac lines pulsed beneath his scales. "I found your network." Mercer became very still. "I know it is in me," Tovan said. "I know it answered Earth after Far Horizon. You should speak with our medical mission." "I did. They chose grammar instead of truth." Mercer sat beside him. "Can it stop the Varkesh?" Tovan asked. The ambassador said nothing. "Your fear answered." "Tovan, how long? I don't understand." "How long have you had it?" Mercer looked toward the empty Varkesh terrace. "In some form, since before we joined." Tovan absorbed this. "Before Nara was formally annexed. We did not have present capability then." "When did you?" "There is no clean date. The system grew." 10 years ago." Mercer's silence was answer enough. 20? "We could not reveal it without compromising Earth's defense." Tovan's voice stayed quiet. "You call 73 years of inaction restraint. My people call it 73 years. Humanity was not responsible for the invasion of Nara. No, you were only one more civilization that discovered a reason not to help." He picked up the bead and walked away. Mercer remained beside the miniature sun until the chamber lights dimmed. That night he transmitted a private message to Earth's Threshold Council. It contained one sentence: "If we survive, survival cannot be the end of our responsibility." Chapter 5. The Second Warning. The Varkesh crossed the Sol boundary at 4:17 Universal Earth Time. Admiral Elena Val watched 9,000 warships appear on the Hastings tactical display. No one on the flag deck spoke. The fleet came in layers, scout blades first, moving in webs around command cruisers. Carriers followed, each holding enough ground forces to occupy a continent. Behind them came dreadnoughts plated with gravity armor, then the long black cylinders of siege engines. Last came the planet cracker. It was larger than a city and perfectly smooth, as if a hole had been cut into the stars. "Boundary monitors confirm," said the tactical officer. Elena opened a shipwide channel. "This is Admiral Vale. The Dominion has entered Terran sovereign space after receiving formal notice. Our mission is to defend the populations of Sol and preserve the record of this attack. Cell commanders have independent authority. Civilian protection takes precedence over asset survival." She paused. "You have trained for a battle no one wanted. Fight the battle in front of you. Take care of one another. Veil out." The opening human attack destroyed 400 Varkesh ships. Krax Var had expected mines. He had not expected the mines to be asteroids. For 60 years, human prospectors had mapped the composition, spin, and orbit of millions of Kuiper objects. On Elena's command, buried engines woke inside selected bodies. Ice and stone unfolded into clouds of fast-moving fragments. Varkesh point defenses tracked the obvious threats. Human navigation buoys altered local gravity by fractions too small to trigger alarms. The fragments missed where the Varkesh ships had been. They struck where evasive doctrine required them to move. Scout blades vanished in silent flashes. Two carriers collided. A dreadnought survived the impacts and discovered that human dust had coated its thermal vents. When it fired its main weapon, trapped heat turned the ship's interior into a furnace. Sareth Var watched damage reports rise. "Their targeting network is distributed," she told her father. "Destroying sensors does not reduce accuracy." "Then the ships are sharing sight." "Not only ships." She enlarged a tactical anomaly. A child's weather satellite had corrected the firing solution of a rail platform. A damaged cargo tug relayed targeting data through an entertainment broadcast. Human systems behaved less like separate machines than cells in one animal. "They violate the autonomous weapons prohibition," Krax Var said. "No weapon is autonomous. Humans authorize every strike." "From where?" Sareth studied the web everywhere. Krax Var ordered the fleet to disperse. That was what Elena wanted. Human attack cells emerged from behind cold moons and drove into the gaps. Their ships were ugly beside Varkesh warcraft, modular hulls, exposed radiators, armor patched from commercial materials. They carried few weapons. What they carried, they used with appalling precision. The destroyer Nairobi emptied its magazines in 11 seconds, rolled behind a comet, and transmitted targeting control to a research telescope on Titan. The frigate Miyamoto allowed itself to be captured so its boarding party could infect a Dominion carrier with false navigation data. 3 pilots crossed through a Varkesh formation with their reactors deliberately unstable, forcing 60 ships to break position. The humans fought without elegance. They also fought without waste. For 9 hours, Krax Var's advance stopped. Then mass prevailed. The Dominion adapted. Dreadnoughts moved ahead of carriers and burned clear paths through the debris. Varkesh jammers isolated human cells. Scout blades hunted civilian relays. One by one, the points of human resistance went dark. At Neptune, 12 Terran ships held position while evacuation craft lifted from Triton. The Varkesh commander offered surrender. Captain Luis Adebayo of the Nairobi asked for 12 minutes to consult his government. He used the time to evacuate 900 more civilians. Then he answered, "We have reviewed your offer and found the accommodations unsatisfactory." The Nairobi died with every weapon firing. At Orison, the Grand Assembly watched the battle on delayed feeds. Representatives who had called the Terran fleet symbolic now saw human crews seal themselves into burning compartments and continue operating their ships. They saw rescue craft move toward Dominion escape pods while the battle was still underway. They saw a human cruiser place its crippled hull between Varkesh fire and an Orun merchant convoy whose government had abandoned Earth. The Orun trade minister stopped speaking about asset stability. The phrase "war apes" spread again, but no one used it lightly. Kalith stood beside Tovan in the archive gallery. "They cannot sustain these losses," she said. "They know." "Then why defend empty orbitals?" Tovan showed her the pattern. Every human position corresponded to a legal threshold, civilian corridor, or monitoring line. Their fleet was constructing an argument in blood. They are proving intent, he said. To whom? Maybe to themselves. At Jupiter, Elena lost 31 ships in 4 minutes. The Hastings shook under a glancing beam. Lights failed, returned red, and failed again. A fragment penetrated the flag deck and killed the communications officer beside her. Atmosphere screamed through the opening until emergency foam sealed it. Elena wiped the officer's blood from her face. Status. Main drive disabled. Cells 4 and 7 are gone. Civilian corridor remains open. Transfer command to the Sagan. Admiral, the Sagan reports its bridge destroyed. Then transfer it to whoever answers. A voice came through the emergency channel. This is Engineering Mate Chen on the Sagan. I answer. You have tactical command of the Jovian withdrawal, Mate Chen. There was half a second of silence. Yes, ma'am. Human vessels fell back toward Mars. The Varkesh fleet had lost nearly 2,000 ships. Earth had lost half of everything it possessed. Kraxvar broadcast his demand again. Surrender the rift, accept administration. The inner system would be spared. Elena stood amid smoke on the damaged flag deck and transmitted humanity's second warning. Fleet Sovereign, withdraw your forces. There will not be another battle after this one. Kraxvar heard defeat. Sareth heard something else. She replayed the message 3 times. What is it? Kraxvar asked. She did not say they could not fight another battle. A species facing extinction often decorates despair. She said there would not be one. Because this is almost over. Sareth looked at the human fleet. Its withdrawal was too orderly for panic, too costly for strategy. Earth continued broadcasting public entertainment schedules. Commercial systems still issued routine updates. Civilian evacuations moved people away from military sites, but not away from the planet. And across captured human military channels, there were silences where fear should have been. Not an absence of fear. The discipline of people waiting for permission. Father, Sareth said, we should halt beyond Mars. Every officer on the command deck heard her. Kraxvar approached until his shadow covered her station. On what military basis? An incomplete model of their remaining weapons, of what they believe a weapon is. For the first time in her life, her father looked at her not as an heir, but as a subordinate who had disappointed him. Continue the advance, he ordered. Behind the moon, the surviving human fleet formed a final line. It had purchased 16 days. On Earth, the second mechanical key turned. Chapter 6. What humanity put inside us first. Speaker Seelith entered the human embassy without an appointment and found Ambassador Mercer asleep at his desk. He had folded his arms over a stack of casualty reports and rested his head on them. For an instant, he looked less like a diplomat than an exhausted old man who had outlived the institutions he trusted. Calith placed Tovan's archive crystal on the desk. Mercer woke at once. Tell me what it is, she said. He looked at the crystal, then at the 2 Continuum security officers behind her. Not with them present. They are linked to my memory. That is why. Seelith dismissed them. Mercer locked the embassy door manually and removed a small human device from a drawer. It emitted no detectable field, but every networked object in the room shut down. The continuity mesh, he said, is a distributed maintenance system. Do not begin with the public language. The public language is true. Is it complete? No. Calith had imagined this confrontation during the walk from the archive. In every version, Mercer denied the evidence or revealed a crude espionage system that the Continuum could condemn. His honesty frightened her. How much of Orison can you access? She asked. I don't know. My neural lace? I don't know. The environmental systems in this room? Almost certainly. Light moved quickly beneath her skin. My government's ships? Seelith, can you disable them? Mercer sat back. The mesh was not built to seize foreign systems. Was it built to disable them? It was built to deny their use in an extermination campaign against humanity. That is a phrase written by lawyers. Lawyers were essential. She struck the desk with both hands. Can you kill us? Mercer did not answer. Outside the embassy wall, Orison's miniature star sent amber light across his face. Daniel, that has never been the purpose of the system. Can you kill us? The human seemed to age in front of her. Yes, Calith stepped away. Her neural lace suddenly felt like an insect beneath her skull. She remembered the human clinic where it had been upgraded after a stroke 30 years earlier. The surgeon had held her hand while the anesthetic took effect. He had sent her a note every year afterward. You infected us. No. You placed mechanisms inside our bodies without disclosure. We built medical systems. Your governments licensed them. Your companies copied them. Your scientists adapted them. Some core safety protocols propagated because removing them made the systems unstable. Safety? Most of the mesh does nothing except keep people alive. And Earth retains authority, emergency authority, authority we did not grant. Yes, the word left no refuge for either of them. Sealith paced to the window. Below, representatives filled the corridors, demanding news from Sol. How many know? The complete architecture? Fewer than 200 humans. Your government? Most members know there is a strategic continuity system. They do not know its reach. Your admiral? Enough to fulfill her role. And you? Mercer looked down at his hands. Enough to deliver 3 warnings. Sealith turned. What happens after the third? The final authorization process begins. What does it do? That depends on the threat. Do not make me ask every question twice. Mercer stood. The protocol uses graduated revocation. It can refuse command authentication, suspend implants, disable military fabrication, interrupt communication, induce safe unconsciousness, or target biological enhancements. Lethal action requires additional authorization. But it is possible. Yes, across the Concord. In theory. How long has Earth possessed this? Not long enough to save Nara, if that is your next question, but long enough to stop later conquests. Mercer looked toward the casualty reports. Possibly. And you did nothing. Every use would reveal the system and provoke every major power to remove it before it could defend Earth. So others paid for your secrecy. Yes. Sealith had expected excuses. The confession left her with nowhere to place her anger. The Varkesh are approaching Earth, Mercer said. Help me stop them before this becomes more than a confession. You expect the Continuum to support you after learning this? No. I expect you to decide whether discovering our hidden knife makes the visible planet cracker less real. You have made the entire galaxy hostage to Earth. We made Earth impossible to erase. There is no difference. There has to be. Sealith left the embassy carrying a truth that could shatter the Concord before the Varkesh fired a shot. Tovan was waiting in her chambers. He confirmed it, she said. All of it? More. Tovan listened while she described the protocol. He touched the blue lines beneath his chest as if feeling them for the first time. Can it stop Kraxvar? You sound pleased. I am deciding whether to be. Humanity violated every civilization it claims to respect. Yes. It concealed a weapon inside medicine. Yes. It could impose its will on all of us. Yes. She stared at him. And still you ask whether it can stop him. First speaker, when the Varkesh came to Nara, your people possessed 12 fleets within range. You chose not to risk them. The humans built a way to risk nothing except our trust. Trust is the basis of civilization. No, protection is the basis. Trust is what protected people can afford. Sealith turned away, troubled by the cruelty of the statement and the history beneath it. Will you expose them? Tovan asked. If I do, every government will demand that Earth surrender control immediately. Will Earth? Not while the invasion continues. Then the Concord will spend the final hours before Earth dies arguing about the weapon that might save it. There are no good choices. Tovan's cardiac light flickered. That is what powerful people say when every bad choice belongs to someone else. On Luna, Marcus Vale inspected targeting criteria with Dr. Okonkwo. The protocol had identified 3.2 billion individuals within the Varkesh Dominion. It knew caste markers, command roles, military assignments, weapons authorizations, and in many cases, the exact orders each individual had issued. It knew because Dominion systems knew. Humanity's hidden advantage was not that it had built omniscience. It had built compatibility. Varkesh personnel files spoke to medical implants. Medical implants spoke to maintenance systems. Maintenance systems spoke to licensed human code. Every civilization had created the databases of its own vulnerability. Exempt civilians, Marcus said. Already categorical. Bound populations, exempt. Forge workers assigned under compulsion. The system cannot reliably distinguish coercion. Then disable factories, not workers. Okonkwo changed the rule. Warclade conscripts below maturity, exempt biological action, revoke weapons access, Commanders not present when the extermination order is signed. Incapacitation only. Hour by hour, they wrote mercy into code. It was harder than writing death. Death required one category, target. Mercy required knowing who had chosen, who had obeyed, who had been forced, who might change, and how much uncertainty a living person deserved. The system offered probabilities. Humans had to turn them into consequences. Elena joined by secure audio from the crippled Hastings. "Fleet personnel?" she asked. "Safe unconsciousness where medically viable," Marcus said. "Motor interruption otherwise. If a ship loses control near a civilian habitat, navigation remains active under mesh authority. Boarding parties? Same. Cracks VAR?" Marcus hesitated. "Command group targeted for lethal action upon confirmation of a planetary strike." "Change it." "Elena, they are the clearest valid targets in the system. Leave him conscious." "Why?" "Because someone needs to surrender." "Sareth VAR could. Leave her conscious too." "You are choosing witnesses." "Yes." Marcus heard the fatigue in her voice. "How many did you lose?" 6,412 confirmed. More missing. He closed his eyes. "I knew what my fleet was for," she said. "They didn't. Not all of them. They volunteered to defend Earth. They thought the defense was us. It was. No, we were the warning label." He had no answer. "Dad, if we survive, this can't stay secret. It cannot be revealed safely. It was never safe. It was only ours. And if the galaxy dismantles it, if another dominion comes in a century, then build something people choose. Choice is a luxury extinction doesn't offer. That sentence can excuse anything." Static filled the channel as the Hastings altered course. "Elena." "I'm here." Marcus placed his hand on the black sphere. "I built this because the first threat models ended with you dead." Her answer took a long time. "I know. I could accept my own death, not yours." "That isn't a defense of the system." "No." For the first time in 40 years, Marcus let the truth stand without making it useful. "It's an apology," he said. Elena's voice softened. "Then I accept it." The connection ended. 6 hours later, First Speaker Seelith called a closed session of the Grand Assembly leadership. She disclosed the continuity mesh. The galaxy's response was exactly as Mercer predicted. The Orun Trade Minister demanded immediate transfer of route authority. The Sale delegation accused humanity of biological assault. 3 representatives attempted to disconnect their translators and discovered that doing so impaired implanted medical functions. The Varkesh ambassador called the system proof of human aggression and demanded authorization for the invasion. "Your fleet departed before you knew it existed," Seelith said. "Our intelligence anticipated an unlawful weapon. Your intelligence anticipated a transit gate." Human deceit is layered. Mercer sat alone beneath hundreds of accusing faces. "We did not hide our weapons from you," he said. "We taught you to call them conveniences." The line provoked shouting. Mercer raised his voice for the first time in decades. "And those conveniences saved billions of lives. They ended 40 classes of interspecies disease. They made this chamber possible. None of that good becomes false because you now understand the danger." "Danger you control," said the Orun, for the moment. The chamber quieted slightly. "What does that mean?" Seelith asked. "If Earth survives, we will negotiate independent custody." "Surrender authority now?" "No." The answer was immediate. "You ask us to trust you," the Seal ambassador said. "No. I ask you to observe us. A fleet is approaching Earth with a weapon designed to fracture its mantle. You would not stop it. You are now asking us to surrender the only defense that can. We will not. Then you hold us hostage. If the protocol is used against anyone outside the attacking force without a direct threat, every human authorization officer has orders to destroy the control plane. Human orders. Human promises." Saluk looked around the chamber. "They are all we have left to offer because you declined to offer ships." The delegates turned on one another. Emergency motions multiplied. The Orun threatened sanctions against both sides. The Varkesh demanded Earth's expulsion. Smaller civilizations asked, quietly at first, whether the mesh could protect them too. Seelith watched the institution she had served for 2 centuries devour its final hours in procedure. Then a transmission from Sol filled the artificial sky. The Varkesh planet cracker had reached lunar orbit. Chapter 7, The Third Warning. Kraxvar destroyed Charon to make a point. The small, lifeless moon had no military value. It orbited Pluto beyond every remaining human defensive position. The planet cracker fired for less than a second. Charon became light. The beam entered one hemisphere and left the other. A fracture crossed the moon's diameter. Then gravity completed the work. Mountains separated. Frozen plains folded inward. Within minutes, the companion that had circled Pluto for billions of years became an expanding belt of incandescent stone. Krax-Var transmitted the images to Earth. The next demonstration will occur against an inhabited object. On the flagship, Sareth watched fragments of the dead moon spread across the tactical display. The demonstration was unnecessary, she said. It was efficient. They know the weapon functions. Knowledge is not submission. Fear must be made physical. They are already afraid. Krax-Var turned to her. You continue to mistake fear for weakness. No, I think you do. The command deck stilled. He descended from the command platform, one deliberate step at a time. Explain. Sareth knew the ritual of dominance. Lower the eyes. Expose the throat. Accept correction before disagreement became challenge. She did none of those things. Humans have been afraid since we crossed their border, she said. They still fought at Neptune. They fought at Jupiter. Their diplomats remain at Orison while representatives call for their surrender. Fear has not altered their choices. Then greater fear is required. Or fear is not the mechanism by which they rank decisions. Krax-Var studied her as if she had spoken in an unknown language. Varkesh civilization taught that all order emerged from fear. The weak feared the strong feared disorder. Mercy was the decision not to settle rank completely, and therefore invited future violence. Sareth had believed this before Sol. Then she had watched a human rescue ship enter weapons fire for Varkesh escape pods. No rank explained it. You asked me to study them, she said. I asked you to learn how they fight. They do not separate the two. Krax-Var moved close enough that she could feel heat from his armor. Do you challenge my command? No, Fleet Sovereign. This time she lowered her eyes. Then prepare the occupation order. The Dominion's final terms reached Earth as the fleet passed the moon. The Terran Union would dissolve. The Helios Rift and all associated research would transfer to the Dominion. Human military and intelligence institutions would submit complete records. Continuity technology would become Varkesh property. 12 million human specialists would enter compulsory Dominion service to ensure a stable transition. Occupation forces would select regional administrators. Non-compliance would be punished by continental sterilization. Earth's General Assembly received the terms in a bunker beneath the Andes. Representatives from every human colony joined by hardened links. Some sat in military shelters. Others spoke from ships already moving towards Sol, though none could arrive in time. The debate lasted 23 minutes. The vote to refuse was unanimous. The vote to authorize the final threshold was not. 7 representatives argued that humanity should surrender rather than release a power no species could control afterward. 3 abstained. 2 wept while voting yes. The measure passed. Beneath Geneva, the Chief Justice read the final finding. The court confirms an imminent, demonstrated, and unavoidable threat to the continued existence of the human species. All statutory alternatives have been exhausted. Civilian protections remain binding. The third key turned halfway. It could go no farther until Mercer delivered the notice. At Orison, the Grand Assembly had become a storm. Some delegates demanded Earth accept the Varkesh terms. Others demanded the Dominion withdraw. Orun markets had frozen all human accounts, then frozen all Varkesh accounts, then closed entirely when human-rooted transaction systems began requesting emergency authentication. Small world representatives gathered around Tovan. Can Earth extend the protocol to our defense? Asked one. I do not speak for Earth. Would you support it? Tovan looked at Sealith across the chamber. Ask me after I learn what they do when they win. The miniature star dimmed. Krax-Var's ultimatum appeared above it, followed by a countdown of 1 hour. Mercer requested recognition. The presiding officer denied it while procedural motions remained. Sealith rose from the Illyri terrace. The continuum yields all speaking priority to Earth. The chamber quieted. It was the first public act of support any elder power had offered humanity. Mercer walked to the central floor. Fleet Sovereign Krax-Var, he said. The Terran Union rejects your terms. This is the third and final notice. Withdraw from the Sol exclusion boundary. Kraxvar's reply filled the chamber. You have no fleet. You have no allies. Your hidden system will be transferred to us when your leaders understand the cost of defiance. Withdraw. Or what? Mercer heard Dr. Okonkwo over the private human channel. All non-lethal categories locked. Then Marcus Vale. Mesh confirms selective reach. Varkesh civilian exclusions holding. Then Elena, speaking from the final defense line above Earth. Planet Cracker is charging. Mercer looked at Seelith. He looked at Avarin behind her sail veil, at the terrified Orun minister, and at Tovan Rel, whose two hearts lived because a human doctor once refused to accept the available odds. Tovan gave one slow nod, not approval, permission to be judged afterward. Mercer returned his gaze to Kraxvar, or we will withdraw our support. On Luna, Marcus placed his palm on the black sphere. The third mechanical key completed its turn beneath Geneva. The quiet defense authorities authenticated one another. No single human said yes. No single human could have said no. The planet Cracker opened its firing aperture. Weapons Master, Kraxvar said. Begin. Earth activated the silence protocol. Chapter 8. The fleet goes quiet. The first Varkesh to fall was Weapons Master Orak. He reached for the planet Cracker's authorization field and found that his arm no longer recognized command. Every artificial nerve in the limb entered medical safe mode at once. His balance implants followed. He struck the deck, conscious but unable to rise. Across the flagship, war-clad bodies began receiving instructions from systems they had forgotten were there. Combat hormones neutralized, motor amplification suspended, pain suppressors disengaged, neural command links isolated. Artificial organs entered protective dormancy. The effects were precise and therefore more terrifying than disease. An officer with a naturally functioning heart remained standing 3 seconds longer than the officer beside her. A commander whose childhood cancer had been treated with human nanotherapy simply fell asleep. A soldier with no implants discovered that the dietary symbiotes which allowed warclades to sustain their engineered muscle mass had ceased processing stimulants. He managed 6 steps toward the armory before his legs gave way. No projectile crossed the void. No beam touched the fleet. 17 million soldiers received the same message from their own bodies. Stop. On the flagship, Sareth remained standing. She watched her father grip the command rail as numbness climbed through him. What weapon struck us, he demanded. No impact detected, she said. Her station filled with alerts. Dreadnoughts lost manual control. Carriers sealed their launch bays. Targeting systems revoked every authorized operator. The planet Cracker's folded power chambers shut down in a sequence so orderly that it resembled routine maintenance. Then the fleet icons began going black, not destroyed, disconnected. Countermeasures, Kraxvar said. No one answered. Orak lay below the weapons station, breathing in short, furious bursts. Kraxvar opened the fleet-wide command channel. It displayed one line of human text. Authority revoked. He turned toward Sareth. Why are you unaffected? She already knew. They selected me. Hatred entered his expression before fear. Selection reversed rank. It meant the humans understood enough about the command structure to choose his heir, and that their choice mattered more than his. Kraxvar attempted to move toward her. His legs failed. Sareth caught him before his skull struck the deck. Ambassador Mercer appeared on the main display. The scene was the same one that would be replayed across the galaxy for centuries. The old human at the center of the Concorde, the fallen fleet sovereign held by his daughter, the silent armada hanging above Earth. What have you done? Kraxvar asked. Mercer's voice was quiet. We revoked our support. The protocol moved through the fleet at the speed of trust. Varkesh medical networks authenticated human safety orders because they had done so through millions of emergencies. Shipboard maintenance systems accepted shutdown instructions because human code had prevented reactor failures for decades. Dominion command implants obeyed because the authority signature was embedded beneath the routines that kept them from damaging the brains around them. Humanity had not smuggled a single weapon onto the ships. The Varkesh had purchased, licensed, copied, improved, and installed every component themselves. The galaxy measured power by the number of ships a species possessed. Humanity measured it by the number of ships that could no longer function without them. Within 40 seconds, organized resistance ended. The protocol preserved navigation. Ships on collision courses altered heading. Reactors remained stable. Life support continued for every conscious civilian and incapacitated soldier. Medical systems monitored the fallen and adjusted the induced suspension to each body. Human rescue craft crossed the final battle line. Elena watched them go from the Hastings. The flag deck had fallen silent for a different reason. Her officers stared at the tactical display as thousands of enemy ships changed from red to neutral grey. Dominion weapons inactive, said Mate Chen, now serving as tactical commander from the ruined bridge of the Sagan. All of them. Confirm planet cracker. Aperture sealed. Power chambers cold. Elena allowed herself one breath. Then she began issuing orders. Boarding teams to command vessels. Medical crews prioritize unstable life signs regardless of species. Tow everything in lunar orbit to safe distance. Record every action. Her executive officer looked at her. Admiral, we won. We stopped a weapon. Isn't that what winning is? Elena looked at the grey icons. Ask me when we decide what happens to the people carrying it. Human boarding crews entered the Varkesh flagship, wearing white rescue markings over combat armor. Sareth waited at the command deck hatch with empty hands. Behind her, 90 unconscious officers lay where they had fallen. Automated medical lights moved across their bodies. The first human through was a lieutenant, barely old enough to hide his terror. Air Commander Sareth Var. Yes, you are being detained under Terran Emergency Authority. Is anyone here in immediate medical danger? She gestured toward her father. He cannot move. The lieutenant scanned Krax Var. He is stable. Restore him. I can't. Then summon someone who can. The human met her stare. No one on this ship can. Krax Var lay inside his own body, eyes burning. Sareth understood then that the protocol had not merely defeated the fleet. It had replaced the meaning of possession. The Dominion still owned its ships. Its soldiers still occupied them. Its commanders still held legal authority. None of it produced control. The humans had made power conditional. Far beyond Sol, the second phase began. At the Varkesh Forge world of Karad, factory doors opened at the start of the morning shift. Hearth-clad cleaners and food workers entered normally. War-clad supervisors found that lifts refused their destination. Fabricators producing armor completed the civilian components in their queues, then dissolved their weapons templates. At the Dominion command moon, bunker doors locked open. Strategic archives copied themselves to Concord monitoring stations. Planetary defense arrays rotated away from inhabited worlds and ejected their firing cores. Military ships across Varkesh territory returned to port under automatic navigation. Those carrying bound laborers opened their detention compartments and transmitted asylum instructions in 81 languages. On the Varkesh homeworld, crown-clad rulers gathered beneath the Citadel of Teeth and ordered a retaliatory strike. Their command, implants, declined. They ordered the arrest of forge workers. Security systems declined. They attempted to broadcast calls for civilian resistance. The networks displayed records of the Sol extermination order instead. Then their bodies changed. For generations, Crown and Warclades had maintained rule through hereditary engineering, amplified strength, aggression control, accelerated healing, and chemical markers that induced submission responses in lower castes. The enhancements were unstable without constant molecular maintenance. Humanity did not switch that maintenance off. It rewrote it. The submission pheromones ceased. Aggression amplifiers normalized. Hereditary markers used to assign caste in the womb became inactive. Already living Varkesh remained themselves, but the biological machinery that reproduced the hierarchy ended in a single morning. For the first time in 9,000 years, a Varkesh child could be born without a rank written into its blood. The ruling castes called it species murder. Hearthclades opened the sealed schools. Forgeclades put down their tools. Bound populations began removing Dominion flags. At Orison, the Grand Assembly watched it happen in fragments. Reports arrived too quickly to process. A fleet had been neutralized. Conquered worlds were declaring independence. Dominion military production had stopped. No civilian food, medical, or environmental system had failed. The precision was undeniable. So was the reach. The Arun trade minister stared at Mercer. "Could you do this to us?" Mercer looked older than he had an hour before. "Not under current authority." "That is not what I asked." Yes, the minister recoiled. Could, Mercer said, is the problem we must solve next. Crax var was brought to the Hastings in a medical suspension frame. Elena met him in the briefing room. Sareth stood beside him under guard. The fleet sovereign could move his eyes and speak with effort. You contaminated children, he said. Elena sat opposite him. Your medical corporations licensed human repair systems, without disclosure of their purpose, without disclosure of one purpose. A weapon, a defense. His mouth pulled back from his teeth. The coward's name for a hidden blade. Elena thought of Far Horizon. Neptune, 6412 confirmed dead. You came to our world with a planet cracker. Visible strength, honest strength. The dead are rarely comforted by the honesty of the weapon. You seeded this through the galaxy before my fleet sailed. Yes. Then you intended conquest. If we intended conquest, fleet sovereign, you would not be here to accuse us. Sareth watched the human admiral carefully. Elena's uniform was scorched. A dried line of blood crossed her temple. She looked nothing like a victor in Varkesh art. No ceremony enlarged her. No captives knelt. What will happen to the fleet? Sareth asked. Its weapons will be removed. Personnel not implicated in war crimes will be returned. And my father? He will stand before a tribunal. Crax var forced a laugh. You believe a court transforms vengeance into virtue? No, Elena said. A court transforms certainty into a question. You have already judged my civilization. Your civilization judged itself when it engineered children for obedience. Hierarchy is our nature. It was your technology. That silenced him. Elena leaned forward. You threatened to end our species. We have elected not to end yours. Do not confuse that decision with inability. Crax var held her gaze. Why? The door opened, and Mercer entered by projection from Orison. Because you were right about one thing, he said. We are dangerous. Crax var's eyes shifted toward him. Our history frightened the Concord, Mercer continued. It frightened us first. We know what happens when fear becomes mission, when enemies become categories, when power convinces itself that necessity has made it innocent. Then why build this? Because when we arrived, every civilization told us peace was maintained by strength. Mercer's face filled the wall above the fallen sovereign. We believed you. Chapter 9. The Mercy of War. Apes. Humanity announced its terms 18 hours after the fleet went silent. Mercer delivered them to the entire galaxy. Behind him, the Grand Assembly was full for the first time since the invasion began. No delegation wanted to be absent when Earth revealed what kind of empire it intended to build. The Terran Union declares combat operations suspended, he said. Civilian systems throughout Dominion territory will remain functional. Medical support will continue without condition. No child will be penalized for the actions of a government or caste. The first display appeared. The Varkesh military will be dissolved. Planetary and strategic weapons will be dismantled under international inspection. All occupied worlds and bound populations will receive immediate self-government. The second display. Crown and war-clade hereditary control enhancements will not be restored. Existing individuals will receive medical care. Future children will be born without compulsory caste assignment. The Varkesh delegation erupted. Their ambassador called it genocide, cultural annihilation, an assault on nature. Tovan Rel activated an archival image above the Nareth terrace. It showed Varkesh laboratories assigning hatchlings to labor categories. You made nature sign your laws, Tovan said. The humans erased the signature. Mercer continued. The Dominion home system will remain under automated weapons quarantine. Military-grade FTL fabrication will be disabled for 500 years, subject to review by representatives of formerly occupied populations. Civilian transit will continue under monitored corridors. A prison, said the Varkesh ambassador. A border, Mercer replied. Your government had taught us the importance of respecting them. He displayed the final term. Air Commander Sareth var will return to the Varkesh homeworld, carrying the complete military, technical, and legal record of the Sol campaign. She will hold no authority granted by Earth. What her people do with the truth will belong to them. Across the gallery, Sareth stood between two human guards. Why her? Calith asked. Because she advised withdrawal, because she questioned an extermination order before it failed, and because choosing the future ruler of another species would repeat the Dominion's crime with better language. The terms satisfied no one. That was perhaps their strongest moral quality. The Nareth wanted the Varkesh homeworld occupied. Some demanded the permanent sterilization of every war-clad line. Human survivors wanted executions. Varkesh civilians feared that liberation would collapse food systems and invite revenge from former subjects. The Orun objected to 500 years of disrupted contracts. Humanity altered details, but not principles. No mass punishment, no restored conquest, no return to a hereditary warrior state. The planet Cracker was towed beyond the moon and dismantled in view of every Concord monitor. Its folded suns were released one by one into artificial containment fields. Human engineers published the process, so no government could claim Earth had secretly taken the weapon. The silent fleet became a hospital. Millions of Varkesh woke under human medical supervision. Some attacked and were restrained. Some wept in humiliation. Many stared at human medics with the bewilderment of people who had expected death and did not know how to metabolize mercy. On the Hastings, a young human corpsman treated Weapons Master Aurak's broken command spine. "You should leave it," Aurak said. "Why? I killed your ships. You're injured. I would have killed your world." The corpsman adjusted the repair field. "You don't get to make me into you." Aurak carried that sentence home. Kraxvar was transferred to a neutral detention station to await trial. Before leaving, he asked to speak with Sareth. They met through a transparent barrier. Most of his motor control had returned, but he refused the support frame humans offered and stood with one hand against the wall. "They send you to dissolve us," he said. "They send me with records." "Records are weapons. So are lies." His eyes hardened. "You spoke against me before subordinates." "I spoke too softly. You believe their mercy proves superiority." Sareth considered this. "No, I believe it proves choice. Choice without rank is disorder. Perhaps, but our order brought us here." He leaned closer to the barrier. "The hearth will tear down what they cannot maintain. The forge will fight the crown. Bound species will seek blood. Billions may die because humans destroyed the structure holding them. Then I will tell them the truth and help build another." "You?" The contempt in the word was familiar. Once, it would have corrected her posture. Not alone. Kraxvar understood then that his daughter had already stepped outside the architecture of his world. "You are not my heir." Sareth touched one palm to the barrier. "No," she said. "I am your consequence." She left without lowering her eyes. The galaxy's political crisis began the moment the military one ended. On Orun Prime, markets reopened and immediately crashed. Investigators discovered that human continuity standards supported transaction identity, cargo authentication, and life support across the compact. Removing them would take decades and cause economic collapse. The trade minister accused Earth of covert colonization. "You made us dependent without informed consent," he told Mercer. "Yes. Stop agreeing as if confession is reparation. It isn't. Then what is? Giving you control." The Orun stared with all six eyes. "You would transfer the mesh? Not to you. To whom? Everyone it affects." The proposal reached the Grand Assembly 2 days later. Earth called for the dissolution of the Concord of Civilized Worlds. In its place, humanity proposed a commonwealth of sapient worlds with no permanent security directorate, no hereditary seats, and no veto controlled by ancient powers. Every member would contribute to collective defense according to capacity. An attack intended to conquer or exterminate a member would obligate all members to respond. Planet-killing weapons would be placed under shared inspection and dismantled. Conquered populations would have a recognized right to petition for liberation. The continuity mesh would transfer to a multi-species trust. No government, including Earth, would possess sole root authority. Emergency activation would require distributed approval among institutions chosen precisely because they did not trust one another. Human technical records would be disclosed in phases as control migrated into the trust. Any civilization could request removal from the mesh, with medical and engineering assistance provided at Earth's expense. The Orun minister read the proposal twice. "You expect us to believe there is no hidden human override?" "No," Mercer said. "We expect you to help design a system in which believing us is unnecessary." Seelith addressed the assembly after him. For 2 centuries, she had defended the Concord as civilization's patient alternative to war. She had told younger species that progress required consensus, knowing the strongest members could survive any delay. She had called stability peace after Nara. She had asked Earth to accept the same fate and thought herself compassionate. The continuum condemns humanity's concealment, she said. We condemn its violation of informed consent and its decision to preserve a strategic secret while other civilizations suffered. Mercer listened without moving. We also recognize that the Concord created the conditions that made such a defense rational. We taught humanity that law would not protect the weak. We refused to defend Earth, then objected when Earth defended itself. The Illyri delegation shifted uneasily behind her. The Concord did not fail in the Soul Crisis. Failure implies departure from design. The institution preserved stability among its strongest members exactly as designed. It offered procedure to the threatened and impunity to the powerful. She looked toward the Nareth Terrace. That design began failing long before humanity arrived. The Illyri Continuum became the first elder power to endorse the Commonwealth negotiations. The Sale joined next, after demanding independent biological safeguards. Dozens of smaller worlds followed. The Orun held out for 11 days, which was considered unusually brief for a decision involving contracts. The Varkesh delegation withdrew from Orison. Representatives of their liberated populations took the empty terrace. Earth did not become ruler of the galaxy. For a time, that disappointed the people who had begun telling the story before the bodies from Sol were buried. There were no kneeling alien monarchs, no human flag over Orison, no proclamation of supremacy. Humanity possessed unmatched leverage and used much of it arguing about audit procedures, minority voting thresholds, medical migration plans, and who should pay to replace incompatible kitchen fabricators. The Terran Union's first act, as the galaxy's central power, was to design a mechanism for becoming less central. That was what finally frightened the elder species into respect. They understood conquest. Conquest followed familiar mathematics. A conqueror accumulated authority, punished rivals, and converted victory into permanence. Humanity did something more destabilizing. It declared that no civilization should hold the power humanity held, not even humanity. Tovan Rel testified before the first Commonwealth Constitutional Convention. He praised the liberation of occupied worlds. He described the blue light beneath his scales and told the human delegation that gratitude did not erase violation. "Your medicine saved my life," he said. "Your secrecy made my body part of a strategy I did not choose. Both facts must remain true, or this institution will begin with another convenient lie." Marcus Vale listened from the witness table. "They are both true," he said. "Should the mesh be removed from me? If you want it removed. Will I survive? We believe so. There is risk." Tavan placed a hand over his heart's. "Then I will keep it." Several human delegates relaxed. "Do not mistake that for absolution," Tavan added. "I keep it because it belongs to me now." Marcus bowed his head. "That distinction will be written into the transfer charter." After the session, Elena met her father beneath Orison's artificial sky. She wore civilian black. The surviving crews of Sol had buried their dead that morning in dozens of traditions. Bodies returned to Earth, ashes scattered into space, names transmitted towards stars their owners had loved. Marcus seemed smaller outside the continuity facility. "The control transfer passed committee," he said. "I heard. 7 custodial blocks. Any emergency action needs 5, unless 3 independently confirm an active planetary strike. Biological actions require separate medical authorization." "You sound almost happy, relieved. The scientist's version." He smiled then, and she remembered being young. They walked along the edge of the assembly terrace. Below, humans worked beside Illyri, Sale, Orun, Nareth, and species Elena could not name, arguing over the grammar of shared power. "Was it worth it?" Marcus asked. She knew he did not mean the war. "The mesh?" He nodded. Elena considered the question for a long time. "Ask me in 73 years. I won't be here. That's why we build institutions." He looked out at the chamber. "Your mother would say that was a cruel answer. Mom liked accurate answers. She did." Elena took his hand. Below them, the first article of the Commonwealth Charter appeared above the miniature star. "No world is the price of another world's peace." For the first time, the Nareth name for their lost ocean appeared on an official galactic map. The vote passed. Epilogue. the thing beneath the silence. 6 months after the battle for Earth, the continuity mesh began transferring to the Commonwealth Trust. The work took place on Luna under observation from 40 species. Human engineers opened systems that had remained sealed since before first contact. Orun auditors counted every instruction. Sale physicians monitored biological effects. Illyri mathematicians verified that no hidden authority survived the transfer. Tovan represented the formerly occupied worlds. Marcus Vale represented no one. He had resigned every official position and remained only because no other living person understood the oldest architecture. At 0311 station time, an Illyri analyst found code humanity had not written. It lay beneath the first continuity kernel, not hidden inside it. Beneath it, as if the human system had grown over something already present. Legacy prototype? The analyst asked. Marcus examined the structure. It used no human mathematical notation. Its error correction assumed dimensions continuity hardware could not directly address. No. They traced it into the network. The code appeared inside Orun biology, Sale neural tissue, Illyri memory crystals, Nareth cardiac structures, and preserved samples collected centuries before humanity reached the stars. It appeared inside Marcus. The continuity mesh had not created the pathway through which it spread. It had found one. Something older had woven compatibility into galactic life millions of years earlier. Something dormant had accepted human maintenance signals because, at a level beneath species, it recognized their form. Shut down the transfer, Marcus said. The Orun auditor reached for the isolation control. Every display in the chamber went black. Across Luna, then Earth, then Orison, human and alien systems paused. No one collapsed. No ships failed. For 1 second, the galaxy held its breath. Words appeared in white. They were not translated by any device. Everyone in the chamber understood them before the symbols resolved. Local custodian authority recognized. Marcus stepped toward the display. Authority? Tovan whispered. A second line appeared. Species. Human. Then a third. Continuity test complete. The lunar facility detected a signal from beyond mapped space. It did not travel through a relay. It did not cross the distance between stars. It arrived everywhere at once. Marcus thought of Annika Bose and the Helios Rift. He thought of the grain of diamond that had reached its destination before the signal that sent it. The rift had not been a door humanity discovered. It had been a lock recognizing a key. The final words appeared. Prepare for return. Then every system resumed. In the silence afterward, Tovan's 2 hearts beat with blue light. Humanity had spent 73 years making conquest obsolete. Something had been waiting millions of years to see who learned how.